I told you that I keep getting stuff. This is for the class. I have probably, I don't know, 15 pages of notes of stuff that was said, this is for the class, or be sure to tell them that, or that kind of thing. So so let me do a little bit of introduction. That was groundwork before, I guess. That wasn't introduction. So a little bit of introduction. The first point that I was to say is it's absolutely necessary to know the principles of the infinite way clearly and specifically in order to correct Chubb conditioning, to confront new Chubb temptations, and to live spiritually. Chubb, again, is collective human belief. That's the beliefs that all of the human level of consciousness is radiating into the one single consciousness. So, as I was saying, because Chubb is so much more intense, it now is much more necessary that we know these principles and that we know them explicitly, so that we can correct Chubb. And it said it's also absolutely necessary to develop the consciousness of these principles through continuous practice. And that's the thing that's been coming to me for the year, continuous practice. I haven't been doing enough work, and I work a lot, but continuous practice means deprogramming ourselves from Chubb. It means every time that we are confronted with something contrary to the principles of the infinite way, that we bring to consciousness the correct specific principle, so that we correct things. So that we would say if there's a pharmaceutical ad on television, we would remember that disease has no power, and mind has no power, and that drugs have no power, and remember the truth about the situation, that only God is there. That the people who think they have a problem that requires that the one who thinks they need that drug or have use for that drug is in fact a manifestation of God, an expression of God, and therefore doesn't need it. And this will become clearer as we go through this classwork, but that's the kind of practice we need to do to confront every lie that we encounter with the correct specific truth. There's really only one principle, and that is that only God is. But all the other principles are derived from that statement. They're all fall out from the statement. If only God is, then all these other things must be true. The important thing is that this ongoingness and ongoing. Most of us know these principles by now. Most of us know them by intellectually. We've all heard the Joel tapes many, many times, and we know what they say. But one of the things I've been discovering is that, what Joel says is very limited by his classes, by the level of consciousness of his classes. And often when I'm hearing Joel, I hear a truer way of saying that, which he knew, of course, but he couldn't say to his classes because they wouldn't hear it. Joel has, his classes are, probably the highest consciousness in the late 50s, in the 50s and in the 60s of the last century. But they're all Christian Scientists and Unity people and New Thought people, and they're all in that, and they're all in the Christian tradition, and there's just an awful lot of stuff that he says that makes makes the teaching more difficult to us now. For instance, I and my Father are one. God is not a father. God has nothing to do with fatherhood or motherhood, and I am not his son or his daughter. Spiritual being has nothing to do with son or daughter. It's spirit. And these terms, father and son and mother and daughter and terms like that, are all material terms. In fact, our whole language is about material terms, and we are not material beings, we are spiritual beings. So there's all of these problems, and I will, with the language, and although they're making the point that he needs to make, they're also adding confusion to us nowadays. So I'm going to try to clean up the language, and you guys get to help me a lot by asking me what I meant and make me stop talking about fathers and son. Well, I never did talk about father and son and type of thing, but make me stay true to the principles and not use all this language, you know. We hear so much, you know, the arms of God wrapped around us. No, you know, etc., etc. So anyway, many of us know the principles and intellectually, and that doesn't really do any good. They've got to move from our head to our heart. They've got to become, see, there was one. Not to our heart, to our consciousness. They've got to become part of our consciousness rather than our intellect, part of our functioning consciousness. So, and we move these principles from our intellect to our consciousness, to our working consciousness, through practice. And that's the hardest thing about this whole thing, is that we need to practice relentlessly in order to deprogram ourselves from the material way of thinking into the spiritual way of thinking. Well, I'm not going to go through the rest of all these items here. What's important is that we hear these principles in consciousness, and my consciousness about these principles has deepened greatly over the past year due to the work I've been doing. I too have been going through relentless challenges, and as a result of that and hours I spend in the morning listening to Joel and several other things, you know, my consciousness has deepened quite a bit, and I'm hoping that during the presentation of the principles of the infinite way that I can paint a picture, a spiritual picture, a feeling picture, and give you a sense of what it is that I'm feeling about this, or seeing about this in a word that doesn't mean I seeing. But, you know, there is a great peace, and it's absolutely attainable by all of us. The peace that passes all understanding. It's very attainable, and when you are feeling the peace that passes all understanding, the great peace, you will know it, and you will love it, and you will have no doubt that all is well and everything is unfolding exactly as it should. And that's the point we want to get to, so that we can drop into that place, and then all this stuff, whatever it looks like, doesn't matter so much. It becomes relatively immaterial. So now, Joel always begins his principles of the infinite way with the nature of God. And so that's where I'm going to begin this, and we'll just get started on it. I got 17 or 18 things while listening to Joel. That don't forget to tell them. Don't, be sure to tell. Be sure to tell. Be sure to tell. So we're gonna start through these, and I'm definitely gonna stop this before the end of the hour so that we can have time for questions and move into something else. Plus, presenting too much is a disservice. The other thing I've discovered is that if I hear an idea and I immediately hear a second idea, it's like it's going straight through my head from ear to ear, and the second idea comes in and pushes the first idea out, and I don't hear it, And so after each idea, there needs to be a pause in order to let the idea drop from the top of my brain, which is where it is when I first hear it, drop down into my consciousness. And that's why I just stop long enough to make sure I know what the sentence said. Whether I believe it or not, whether I understand it or not, I need to know what the sentence said. Do I know all those words, and do they make sense strung together in that order? So I'll start talking about the nature of God, and if we knew the nature of God, if we believed, if we experienced the nature of God, if that were part of our consciousness, we'd be permanently at rest, permanently at peace. And to the extent that we get this picture of the nature of God, to that extent we will experience peace, rest, well-being, joy. Then, first of all, when I say God, what do I mean? Because that's got 100 meanings. Everybody has a different idea. By God, an absolute synonym for God is consciousness. By God, I mean consciousness. By consciousness, I mean God. And consciousness is this very immediate experience that we're having right now. We're all conscious. And in fact, we're all conscious of the fact that we're conscious. Okay? That's consciousness. If a person is unconscious, they're a lump and there's nothing going on. If you're conscious, then there's awareness in you. That's a good word. There's awareness in you. And by consciousness, that's what I mean. This consciousness that we all are. We're all conscious of the fact that we're conscious. We're aware of the fact that we're aware. And that's God. This is God. This consciousness that I am experiencing right now as I sit here and look at you all and talk is God. God is consciousness. Consciousness is God. So the two words are absolutely interchangeable. And when I talk about God, I'm talking about this consciousness that we're experiencing right now, all of us. And now you see already, right at the start, how difficult it is to get that from, what do you mean this awareness that I have right now is God? I mean exactly that. I mean literally exactly that. This awareness, this consciousness that I have right now is God. And through reminding ourselves of that regularly and through practicing that, it will move from this strange thought in our heads down into our comprehension, and it will go deeper and deeper and deeper until it becomes clear. So, another word that we'll be using identically, there is no difference between spiritualness and consciousness. If somebody's talking about spiritual consciousness, they're talking about God consciousness. If somebody's talking about spirituality, they're talking about godliness. These things are exactly the same. By spirit we mean not material, we mean spirit. body, mind, spirit. The spirit part of us, that's word spirit, body, mind, consciousness. We could say just as easily. Body, mind, spirit. Spirit is consciousness and God is consciousness. So the name of this work is Only God Is. And another way of saying that is all there is consciousness. Okay? Which is the basic truth that has been coming out of India for 6,000 years. All there is consciousness. That's what all these great teachers, these wonderful teachers say. And the consciousness they're talking about is not some far-off God consciousness. The consciousness they're talking about is this consciousness that is my consciousness right now and your consciousness right now. This presence. And it's so difficult to, words are just so inadequate that all I can do is sort of like poetry, and like try to give you the flavor of it. But that's it. All there is consciousness. All there is this consciousness that I am conscious of right now, that you are all in. Notice that you are all in my consciousness, as everybody in this room is in your consciousness, and yours, and yours, and yours. Everybody is in. So and we can go one step further. All there is in my experience is what's in my consciousness. My consciousness and my experience are identical. If it's not in my consciousness, I'm not experiencing it. If I'm experiencing it, I'm conscious of it. If I'm not conscious of it, I'm not experiencing it. So all there is in my experience is my consciousness. So I am the God of my experience. I am the consciousness of my experience. And my experience is entirely in my consciousness. See, already that yeah. If I go any further, we're going to start drifting away from this. That needs not a few minutes to settle, that needs a year to settle, right there. So let's take a year's break and then we'll come back. We'll come back to the next comment. So all there is consciousness. All there is God. And all the God there is in my experience is the amount of God I have in my experience. And I'm going to go one step further because it's okay within this. There's only one God. There's only one consciousness. We're all and that's the consciousness that is God. That's all there is. All there is consciousness. All there is God. There's not all this stuff. All there is God, is consciousness, and it's the one consciousness, and all of us are expressions within that consciousness, and all of us are experiencing the part of that consciousness that we're aware of in our own consciousness right now. God is expressed as all individual being, which is to say every individual being in the universe is an expression of God. Not a child of God, not a son of God, an expression of God. Is God expressing itself. You are God expressing itself. I am God expressing itself. And all these expressions of God are within God consciousness, are part of God, our God consciousness. See, again, within is a funny word too. We'll get to that. But we're all expressions of God consciousness, and we're all conscious, and those of us that at this level. And everything that we're conscious of is also an expression of God. And we're conscious of the amount of God that is in our experience, depending on our level, so to speak, of consciousness. Each individuality, each individual expression of God is at a particular state and stage of consciousness, as Joel likes to say. And the amount of God that we are experiencing is the amount that we are conscious of, is the reflection of the level of our consciousness, the level of our state of consciousness. So, I, as an individual expression of God, am experiencing as much of God as I can experience at my current level of consciousness. And that is what I'm conscious of. That is what I'm experiencing. That's what I'm looking at. Yeah, I think I don't want to go any further than that. I really think that's a real chunk, and I really want you to get it. And you know, the allness of God and the identity of God with consciousness, the allness of consciousness, everything that is part of consciousness, and therefore is spiritual. Remember, spiritual is the synonymous with consciousness. So everything that is consciousness. Everything that is spiritual. Everything that is made out of consciousness, or is existing in consciousness, or is of consciousness, I guess is a better word. And each of us is conscious, and each of us is one of the expressions of God in consciousness. And each of us is experiencing as much of God as we individually are conscious of. And our experience grows, becomes more blissful, as the amount of God that we individually are conscious of grows. And that's the original position, and I'm going to stop there for now. But that's the motivation for practicing, is to increase the amount of God that we're conscious of. And that's the whole point of all of this stuff, of understanding the principles of the infinite way, of practicing the principles of the infinite way, of practicing the presence, of all the radical kid work that we did last year. The whole purpose of that is to increase the amount of God that we individually are conscious of. And this class is going to be devoted to trying to deepen, to increase the amount of God that we're conscious of, or to deepen our understanding of that. So I'm going to pause right there and see if anything else needs to be said. I didn't know this was going to be so hard. It's so incredibly simple that it's almost inconceivable. You know, it's just so incredibly simple, but it's just so incredibly contrary to everything we've been taught and conditioned that that's why this is going to be a chunk at a time class over a period of time. It's so incredibly simple. All there is consciousness. Only God is. Everything is God. Everything is consciousness. Everything is spirit. Let's take a 10-minute break now until 5 minutes after the hour, and if you have any questions, or then when we start up, we'll start up with any questions that came up, or as if you could actually formulate a question, or we'll devote the initial few minutes to any opportunity to clarify or deepen or expand on this, and then I'm dying to hear what your years have been like. So it's really good to be with you all again. *6 mutes your phone when you're not actually talking, and *6 unmutes your phone before you can ask questions or talk. And we'll be back at 5 minutes after the hour.